Hey, my name is Rafael, you watch Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about the 5 musicians that the metal god, Mr. Rob Halford, the Judas Priest vocalist, would choose for his dream band. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave your comment, and tell me what you think, okay? If you agree with his choices or not. So let's start. Back in 2020, he gave an interview to Revolver magazine, and he was asked by Revolver if he could choose the musicians for his dream band, and that's what we're going to talk about, that and a little bit about his relationship with these artists he listed. Well, the first one mentioned it by him, and they were big friends, and it is the late legendary Ronnie James Dio. Ronnie James Dio, the American singer. He started. He first achieved fame as the vocalist of Elf. Then Elf opened it for Deep Purple in the 70s, and when Ritchie Blackmore decided to leave the band and form Rainbow, he invited Dio to be the vocalist, and you know the rest of the story, obviously. He then joined Black Sabbath, recorded Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, formed his own band Dio, and reunited with Sabbath a few times over the years, and then sadly passed away too soon back in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was 2010 that Dio passed away, 2009 actually, I'm sorry. And you know, the interesting thing that obviously they toured together multiple times over the decades, sharing the same bill in festivals. But a very interesting thing about Dio and Rob is that back in the early 90s, when Dio reunited with Sabbath and they recorded the album The Humanizer, released in 1992, back then they were invited by Ozzy Osbourne to be their opening act. And I mean, I think it was a terrible situation, you know, a terrible thing really, because Tony and Geezer accepted to be Ozzy's opening act in a special show, and Dio was really pissed off at that, man. He was pissed, and he really couldn't believe that you know they were going to accept to be the opening act for a guy who was part of the band once, you know, and I totally agree with him. I think he was right, and that shows how true, how, you know, the way that Dio, the way he saw life, and he saw the relationships and things, and I think he really had the right decision, and he decided not to play with Black Sabbath that night. And you know, Black Sabbath still wanted to do the show, so they called Rob Halford, and he was Black Sabbath's vocalist for that night. And he, you know, you got that entire concert available on YouTube, and you can look for it. You know, Rob Halford, 1992, Black Sabbath. You're gonna look and you can watch that show. It's just incredible. I mean, he do tracks from both eras, and it's pretty cool. But that's an interesting thing. He filled in for Dio, and he also did that for Ozzy at the Ozfest in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Ozzy was feeling sick. He couldn't make it to the show. They didn't want to cancel it. Sharon Osbourne called Rob Halford, and he did it for a second time. He's a big Black Sabbath fan, and well, that was his first choice. Let's go. I promise to be more faster now. His second choice for the vocals would be Bon Scott, the late legendary AC/DC vocalist, who tragically passed away too soon, left us back in 1980 at the age of 33. And he certainly was a crucial part of AC/DC, not only for his incredible vocals, the phrasing, but obviously for the songwriting. He was the songwriter of the band alongside Malcolm and Angus Young, and he was certainly a fundamental part of AC/DC's success, and you know, he is certainly one of the greatest singers of all time, of course. Can you imagine Bon Scott and Dio in the same band? Wait for the next ones. And then he listed another vocalist who would be Jill Janos, and she was it's a woman, and she was born in New York City back in 1975. She was the vocalist of Huntress, an American band, who obviously was not as famous as AC/DC and Rainbow and Black Sabbath, as we talked about these bands, but she was really an incredible vocalist. And if you haven't heard Huntress yet, you should go and check it out. The albums she recorded with them, but she tragically left us too soon as well. She passed away. She tragically died in 2018 at the age of 42. And Rob and her knew each other. She already mentioned it, Rob, as an inspiration. And sadly, she had a tragic end and is no longer with us. But we go to the next one, and for the bass guitar, he would choose Lemmy Kilmister, and they were also great friends. He had the chance to spend some time with Lemmy multiple times over the decades. They were big friends, and they shared the violin festivals all the time over those decades. And you know, he just adores Lemmy, and they were really good friends, and they really respected each other's music. And the interesting thing is that Motorhead covered a lot of bands, covered a lot of songs, and they covered Breaking the Law, and they did which is probably one of Judas Priest's biggest hits, if it's not the biggest one. And they did a really nice version. If you haven't heard yet, you should check it out. The Motorhead version for Breaking the Law is really cool. And the final one he would choose for the band, and it's interesting because there is no drummer, right? He didn't choose a drummer. Yeah, you're right. I'm just checking it out. He didn't choose a drummer, but anyway, it could be Scott Travis, who is Judas Priest's drummer. But the final one he would choose would be Steve Clark, who also tragically passed away too soon. He passed away in 1991 at the age of 30, and he was certainly a fundamental part of Def Leppard. I mean, Def Leppard is one of my favorite bands, and I mean, Def Leppard started as a really hard rock band like AC/DC. I think those first Def Leppard albums are quite heavy, and you can see a big influence of AC/DC there. You got really heavy songs, and then they really went more commercial, but they're still fantastic, and you can see all the incredible technique and the incredible talent that Steve Clark had. And with Leppard, he recorded the albums On Through the Night in 1980, High and Dry in 1981, Pyromania in 1983, and Hysteria in 1987. But in their 1992 album, which was Adrenalized, they already had the new drummer, the new guitarist. They still didn't had actually the guitarist Vivian Campbell, who worked with Dio. So the guitars were actually recorded by Phil Collins, who was the other guitarist of the band. But still, there were some tracks from that album who were co-written with Steve Clark, and that track, it's actually one track, which is Heaven Is, and it's credit to Steve Clark too. He helped to write a little bit of that track that was released without him. And since although Vivian wasn't part of this album, he joined the band, and he is the band's guitarist since then. And the lineup is the same for more than 30 years. So you got Joe Elliott on vocals, Rick Savage on bass, Rick Allen on drums, and Phil Collins and Vivian Camp on guitars, and they're still great live. They're great band. And those are the 5 options, the 5 musicians that Rob Halford would choose for his dream band. And I hope you liked the video. I remember that he mentioned this in an interview with Revolver Magazine, that, and if you want, you can go to the description. You're gonna find a link to that interview in our article. And that's it. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave your comment below, tell me what you think. And that's it. I hope you liked. Thank you for watching, and I see you later.